welcome to another episode of the Business of Music Breakdown, or the BOM podcast, your weekly podcast on all things related to the business of music. And we're excited today. By the way, it's presented by Stonebeer Meyer, and with your host, of course, Helmut Meyer, and myself, Lucas de Beer. And we're excited today as we'll be speaking to the owner of Die Donner Media and Design Group, for reals, Afrikaans joke, and also award-winning filmmaker, musician, songwriter, producer, director. We're excited to have Charl Folscher with us today. Charl, welcome.
Okay, Lucas, thank you for the big intro.
Charl, so the loaded question, how did you get into the business of music?
I spent a lot of time overseas after I got married, and the desire to do music, to be a singer-songwriter, has been there since obviously school. But I only really started climbing into the business of music when I came back from the UK in 2005, and I came back with the goal I wanted to make a solo album. And so that was my introduction to the music business in South Africa. Did a lot of self-publishing.
That's how we all start out.
As you do.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
I think from from an artist perspective, and maybe from a kind of financial perspective, it definitely was not a success. But it was a success in the sense that it was just a great learning school. A lot of education in it, and so that wasn't the last. After that, I was involved with different bands and different recordings, and each time it kind of was a little bit more of a school. And I think I would say at the third recording, it started. I started becoming part of stuff that I actually liked. So
but your approach to this thing to me is very interesting, because there's really an overlap between the audio and the visual component, film and music. I mean, you are releasing a new single now, and I've just watched the new music video that you've made, which is beautiful, and we'll put this underneath the credits here, so people can go and watch the new video. It's really fantastic.
Actually filmed by Joshua Farrow, a young up-and-coming filmmaker.
Oh, fantastic.
Himself,
All right.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious, how did you then also get into that side of the creative space, film, and the visual aspect of it?
You go through cycles in life, and I would say it was actually one of those seasons that I kind of, quote unquote, gave up on music. It was, we went to the UK the second time, and I was like, stuff that I need to do something, I don't know, that earns money or whatever. At that point, I was working in hospitals, and I actually did enjoy that environment, but I didn't see myself becoming a nurse or a doctor, anything like that. But the one thing that did rise to the top was photography. And I can remember at school, especially high school, I started looking, through photography books and magazines and stuff. So it was an interest that kind of started perking up, but I didn't really follow that route. The music passion came from like primary school. It's kind of raw. It's just like I remember the day I saw another kid actually performing something in the sung class, and it's like that just ignited something for me. I was like, I wanted to do that. And that put me on that journey. But then the photography thing, one of our stints overseas, we lived in Minnesota in the States, and I bought a film camera back in the day. So that would give you away how old I am. But I got that, and then when we ended up in the... you guys know. When I ended up in the UK, I was like, okay, music, this isn't gonna work. And I started photography. Just really taught myself, just consumed everything. Back then there was no internet. It was just, consumed all the magazines you could find and get a subscription and all that. But it's funny, in that time I ended up in a church in London, a very well-known big church, and in that space I was used on the music side of the church, and I was actually became the main photographer guy, pulling together teams and doing the photography.
Oh, wow.
So that's kind of where the two started running together.
Yeah.
And when I came to South Africa, obviously you have to make a living.
Yeah.
And you need to follow your dream of making music, and that kind of naturally evolved into the video side of things, and that just gave me another tool of storytelling that I really, really love. I would say photography is the thing that I enjoy just doing, no strings attached, no pressure or whatever. But video is the thing that I also it enhances that storytelling, and that's kind of where the vein of another road and career for income, but it's not really about income, it's about passion, I just started going down that road. So
it's such a great creative professional comment you just made. It's not really about income, it's about passion.
But
but you need the income. You need,
no.
to pay the rent.
I think very often it is the dilemma of, and then we'll talk about your statement about creativity just now that you made on your website. But as creative, that is the dilemma, is that very often you're thinly spread between more than one interest, and you have the pressure of the real life.
Yeah, especially in South Africa. I've lived in the States 3 times and in the UK twice. And the resources that you have there as a young kid, if you start showing passion in, say, music, I mean, the ability to learn, back in the day when the internet wasn't something, but even especially also now, the ability to learn online and then actually go buy gear and try things, and actually the resources in those developed countries just give you more time to follow this passion without, before you really start feeling the pressure. I need to now, do a career that ups my income. That the grace that you have with regards to testing things out, because of resources, it's extended over there. I think here you start feeling pressure to crap your boykie very quickly out of school, because it's not the same context. You need to dry the center. You need to make your money work. And I don't think you have the same freedoms here, and therefore you need to spread yourself thin and do everything. And I kind of in the UK I caught onto the concept of use what's in your hand, but I've always been, at that point I always wanted to do, I just wanted to do this thing, and I wanted to specialize very quickly. I wanted to do this music thing, but I didn't stay curious to open myself up for other things and opportunities. And I think that probably cut me off from opportunities that would have actually enabled me to do music maybe more at that point, because I just wanted to do this. But in the end, you're doing less because you don't really have income to do it, So, but it's a tension. You always feel it, because where your creativity flows out the easiest, and just without effort. But now you need to do all these other things. But if you do open up yourself to it, sometimes you find gold, like I did with video and photography. In the end, I also started doing graphic design and website designs and all that, because it's just diversified.
Yeah.
But I do like the concept and the ability to specialize at some point, just in a way, because that's the thing that then, if you become more laser focused on something, you'll get, and you stick through the hard times, you'll start getting momentum quicker than what you've got. I heard this quote the other day, jack of all trades and master of none, so it's kind of a negative thing. But then I realized it was actually a positive thing. Back in the day, it was there was this playwright guy in London, and he used to do everything. I mean, literally build props, and then he'd do some directing, he'll do some acting, he'll learn all the lines. And he writes, and he just did everything. And they called him a jack of all trades, master of none. But the rest of the saying is, it's oftentimes better than the master of one. So it's actually a positive thing. And it was actually William Shakespeare that they referred to. So I think it's good to do that, but somewhere you find that that road where the specialization comes in.
Something draws you.
Yeah, if you just keep at it. So I would say my rawest passion is music. But because of being spread so thin, I wouldn't say I'm the most skilled in that area. But then in today's, certain parts of that area, but in today's environment, collaboration is just fantastic because you don't have to be, now in the music sense, you don't have to be master of everything in that context, So.
You mentioned on your website that creativity isn't a career choice; it's a standard of excellence. What does it mean to you?
It's something that I started thinking about not too long ago, but a few years ago. That I started because I worked in admin a long time. Before I started breaking out. In hospitals. Before I started taking the chance of doing my own photography business and tried the music stuff and then start building websites and video and all that. So I did admin and it was frustrating to me, but I actually knew how to do admin. I knew how to do credit controlling and different things. But I realized, and I think my wife actually inspired me with regards to that. I just saw how she could walk into a business or a organization and just the systems, it's chaos. And then she goes in there and works from, and within 6 months, she started creating systems and things that work. It just flows and creating manuals so that if she goes, someone else can, So I just realized there's creativity even in that context. It needs to be efficient. So you need to think creatively. You need to think out of the box. You need to remove yourself from how deep that rut's, being worn through, people doing it the same way, and for you to kind of create new systems that involves creativity. So I think, when I was stuck, and that's the thing, when I was stuck in the admin world, the moments that I didn't see it as being stuck, but as, okay, what can I do here while I'm here? That allows you to bring creativity even in that context. I mean, doctors, designing new procedures for, operations, things like that. That's creativity. It involves thinking outside of the box and creating something new on top of maybe existing science or just new science. I mean, to me, it's all creativity.
And that was absolutely my next question. So you're involved in multiple creative aspects. Photography, videography, music, songwriting, directing, all these things. And my question would have been, how do you stay creative? But you've kind of said now to think out of the box. Is there anything else you maybe want to add to that?
How to stay creative? I think you can get a job, do a video job, and you can it could be the same as a previous job for another client, and you can literally just, okay, I know the formula, I'm just gonna do it that way. But I'm always kind of not satisfied with doing it the same way I did before. You don't want to kind of break the mold. It needs to fit what the customer wants, but I don't necessarily want to use the font in the same way that I did the previous one. Century Gothic might work for you, the previous one or something. And it's like, it's an easy font that I love that I can just replicate. But every now and again, you need to kind of, okay, let's think of and this is very practical, but let's think of a different font and font transition and not just go for the formula, And in that way, I think it's the same for all of those disciplines. But I think in the long run, if you want to stay... just kind of keep that passion of staying creative. The net's wide. I do a lot of things, but I would like to kind of. I mean, I've only been back in South Africa for 3 years now. So I kind of needed to throw the net out, and then obviously COVID happened, all that. But in that you needed to just kind of diversify. But I would like to get to a point where, and I know what I want to focus on, but. And then that allows you to become more creative now in a more focused way. But you always just need to never be satisfied. Never be satisfied with where you were yesterday, And in I think if that hunger stays there, you're gonna find new ways, to stand out. But it's really not to stand out above the rest. That's great, but it's to satisfy yourself that you're not getting stuck in a rut. And you happy with what you're producing. If I keep producing the same way I did yesterday, I'm never going to kind of be happy. As creators, we never kind of really happy with where we end on something. We can always improve it, but you kind of need to make the decision. Okay, let this go to the person that you're making it for, and if that's part of it, you're always going to try find new ways, creative ways.
So I have a little bit of a personal question. Just thinking back on your time in America, now back in South Africa, would you say it's tougher to make a living, just speaking professionally and earning an income?
Yeah.
Is it more tough in South Africa than it used to be in the States?
Yeah. To make a buck, to make a rand or a dollar, it's way easier there. Even if you're struggling over there, it feels like you can buy food. You can buy your occasional bit of clothing without, getting a credit card or, a loan or some kind of pressure which is never wise to do anyway. It doesn't matter if you're South Africa, but those pressures come way quicker in South Africa. So yes, it is way more difficult. The buffer that you have in America is just, it's thicker, You can last longer before you really hit rock bottom, and if you have the right mentality, you probably never hit rock bottom unless it's just kind of freak circumstances, stuff like that.
Yes.
But you're also a very small fish. And just think about it. We've 60 million people in this country. In America, you're 300 million. To get into the space of where the great ones are, I call them, like the champions of their industries.
Yeah.
The road is just, it's not impossible, but it's just, that's more the benefit of being in South Africa. And I was reluctant to come back for a time, but you very quickly feel at home, because it's like now you don't have to make your mark in a culture that doesn't really know you. You think they know you, or you think you know them, but you never truly will. I've been overseas a few times, and I've stayed 6.5 years in the UK. 5 years in the UK, 6.5 years in the States, and even though you come back to a challenging context, it's just immediately you understand what goes on around you. Maybe not fully, but you understand. You feel at home within the context of South Africa, and then you also, there's some level of luck and grace involved in it, but then the industry, my industry, is way smaller. So if you get one little inroad, then you start to know everyone. In the States, it's not the same. You've got New York, you've got Los Angeles, you've got, and then you've got a lot of the other big cities, Atlanta, that just all these different hubs. So you kind of need to migrate to one of those hubs, and then it's such a big city, it's just to get in somewhere is difficult. So it's definitely more difficult, especially coming back and having to start from scratch. But it's got its benefits. And I think what I'm hopeful for is momentum here gives momentum and connections back overseas, and that handshake makes it sustainable to stay here.
You've mentioned now the mentality as well.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering, how has living overseas helped you to think differently? In coming back to your own country, and maybe this, if there's a listener listening, maybe the importance of sometimes crossing boundaries, getting a new perspective,
and bringing it home.
Or what kind of changes or what kind of lessons can you take from that?
Yeah, I mean, you're a very traveled man. I'm probably not even as traveled as him, but I've stayed more places. I think if I could have every South African just go for one trip overseas and stay there for a month, I would love that, because it just brings you a different perspective, and it mostly brings you gratefulness. If you allow it to. It can also bring you discontent, because it's always better on the other side. But now if you live on the other side, it's also always better on this side. It's just you break that seal and then it stays there. But like the UK allowed me to not take myself too serious. I learned that. The US on the other side helped me to communicate better, you know. They're very task driven. They're very, like, people come second, task first, efficiency first. And on our side, it's like, let's care, you know, like, this is a meeting, we need to finish this meeting.
Don't challenge that.
It's absolutely not. Yeah, it's a meeting that needs to, we've only got an hour, but then it's 2 hours because we catching up first, and it's like relationship first and then task second. Now, when you go to Gauteng, it's a little bit more American. It's task on top, you know, people second, but then also in that context, sorry, this little side note, I find the people to be really warm, and you know, you quickly get into someone's circle over there. Cape Town is a little different, but yeah, I mean, overseas, other countries give you a perspective that if you allow it, make you more efficient, and hopefully also more grateful for what you have. Because I found a love for South Africa by being overseas, even though everything here feels more difficult, and like it's chaotic when you're over there, because you just see it through the eyes of media, and you come back and it's like you get that streetwiseness again, you know. So South Africans that leave and they've been gone for 10 years, they kind of lose that streetwiseness to not feel like everything's going, you know, go haywire over here. There is a lot of dysfunction. We don't have to hide it. But when you're here, you kind of keep that grit to like actually be able to make a living and enjoy living here, even with all the challenges. But it's like anything, you know. If an American comes over here, what they learn here, I think, make them a better person on the other side. I think it's valid for all countries.
Yeah,
and even different contexts and areas in a country, you know, especially America. I mean, it's like so Dexel's big. I mean, it's like I did a big trip like once with my wife, and it's like we started in New York, we went down to, you know, Augusta, Georgia, and then Atlanta, and then we went over to Nashville, and it was Memphis, and then we went up to Ohio, and it's like, and then up to Minnesota, and then back to New York. And I thought, man, like I worked out the miles and the kilometers. It's like, man, I've traveled America, and you look at the map, and it was literally looked like you traveled a third of the country. So like the rest is over there. So you can imagine in that context, you have to change context to open your eyes a little bit. Yeah. Long answer to a short question.
Right on.
Yeah, and you mentioned Cape Town just now, how different it is, for example, in South Africa to live in Cape Town versus living in Joburg.
Yeah.
Makes me think of us as creatives. I mean, support is a very important subject in our, you know, different lives that we live compared to a more, you know, structured corporate way of living. How important would you say it is to have support structures in your life? And if I may ask, what kind of support do you have in your professional and your personal life?
I mean, you know, for me, it's not a reality for everyone, but family is like blood family. I'm lucky that it's good, and there's a lot of support in that. I mean, I'm married to an amazing human being, and you know, it brings love and support, but also helps me with direction, you know. I think back in the day when you're younger, you kind of just like, you go through life and you just like, you don't even notice people's opinions, and you know, just everything's a haze, because you just like, you don't, you know, just for a moment slow down and notice what's around you. And I think I would have appreciated it more if I was more wise, but then, you know, that only comes with age, you know. Well, mostly.
You're getting there, man.
You're noticing that I'm all out already. So I think family, and then certain friends, and then people in the industry, you know.
Being part of the community.
Being part of a community. And it's only recently that I, you know, So I came back, tried to cut up my own potjie, and then being involved in a few things, but you kind of feel like, well, I need to make this work for myself now. And COVID, brought a lot of challenges for a lot of industries. And seeing that I live in Caledon at the moment, it just kind of killed me. I mean, it's like it put me on like 2020 started out like, here we go. This is gonna be good. And then COVID, the first lockdown hit, and then a certain job pulled me up to a certain point. But then after that, I just didn't want to. Especially with the second wave, everyone was ready to go after the first lockdown. And then the second lockdown, after that, everyone was afraid, to do anything. And being in Caledon, it just made it even more difficult. But then I got to a point this year where I was like, you know what? Because I'm also a more mature age, so coming back especially into the video production for TV and all that, wanting to kind of try get into it in South Africa here, it's kind of, my age, you can't really, I'm willing to, but no one's going to let you start, I don't run around and be a runner or whatever, the trajectory and career in that career is, can be pretty long, and there's probably no time. So no one really, you just can't get into it. And that's where community was important. It's, I actually approached a friend of mine in the industry, and it just, I said, dude, COVID's killing me. Just put a little humility on the table. It's like, don't pretend like you're this great filmmaker, and just, I have a lot to learn, especially in this industry, especially where you at, do you have a little space? And just the support, even just from that conversation, and being in a community, and just, even coming back, reconnecting with you guys, and then all of a sudden just reconnecting with everyone that I had done live and started, especially in the music side of things, and not burning bridges and letting relationships go when you're in America and I'm gonna stay here forever, like even a certain contact there as the guy called Franco that actually helped me produce this song now, like just keeping contact, we weren't like best buddies at that point, but just, keep contact. And I remember actually lying on the stage at this church that I was working with in Georgia, and having this Facebook conversation with Franco, and, keeping those things alive. And when I came back, it kind of came full circle to fruition. And I realized this guy started producing. I didn't know that, and that led to let's do this, and to this point. So, family in my life have played a big role for me not to give up. But then when it comes to actually in the industry, you need to make that circle as big as you can.
Wow.
Keep relationships going, even if that relationship doesn't benefit you at this point in time. And if it never does, it does benefit you. There's a mutual something there that does benefit you, at least in the sense of growing in knowledge or wisdom, So I think a lot of creators, sometimes even in the older age, it's like, man, I'm like the rock star with my 2 followers, and then, and might be facetious, but there's still people that kind of, like, man, I'm going to do this on my own. But like, it's amazing coming back actually, and just seeing with you guys in the industry also, the amount of connections and relationships that were back in the day that maybe, you moved apart, but it's still there and it's still flourishing.
Yeah. And everyone has moved on.
Yeah. But not letting those go, and might not be in someone's life for a long time, but like the occasional hello, whatever, and it comes around and it's full circle. So,
wow, that's fantastic. Having personal, having professional support.
Yeah.
I want to change gears just a little bit.
Yeah.
Getting back to your kind of creative expression, and I was just curious, how does your music and your musicality influence your visual kind of creative side? What's the interplay there, or the overlap for you?
Because music is so emotional. One thing is this: a guy that produced the EP for me, Daniel Ornelas in Nashville. he said, Charl, your skill level, in the industry where I work, we just do music all the time. So it's taken a little bit of that mystery out of music for us, But you just got enough to do this, but you still have that kind of mysterious love for, music. So, it might, a certain theory in music or whatever might be known, but it's not like you with it busy with it every day. And he said that kind of helps you to allow to really enjoy it in a different way still. And that brings me to how emotional music is, and I'm an emotional person. I'm very, with my boy, I'm very huggy in his face, and it's sunnah, and it's like, so I feel things, I feel strong, and because I feel music so strong, that has bled into the way I edit. Even if you edit a corporate docu, even if there's silence in it, I always think of it in the sense of, like, is this going to move someone in some way, like how music moves me, and that's that I feel have influenced me, how I edit and film. I'm always wanting to create in that context in an emotional way, even if it just gives information. Then you find a way to, in the corporate context, do something that will move that businessman that hasn't got more than 30 seconds, And I'm not saying I'm fantastically good at it, but that's what I'm always aiming for. And then, because music, movements, the ebb and flow of things. And that's that kind of storyline or that journey rather, that you get taken along on the song if you listen it through, properly. It feels like it's the same in a video. You go through this ebb and flow. You take people up here, then you drop them and leave them, and you take them again. It's the same as the dynamic that you get into in a song that take you on that journey. So I think it's the emotional side, the feeling side, have really crept into the way I produce video. So yeah.
We need to almost land this, but we have two more thoughts to bounce of you. How do you manage a lot of projects? Maybe just as a practical thing for the listeners.
Yeah.
I know you what's the saying? You have a lot of balls in the air.
Yeah.
Is that
very much? Yeah.
You're juggling a lot of. I don't know what the English expression is, but you know what I mean. But you have a lot of stuff on your plate, and you manage a lot of things. How do you actually cope with deadlines, all the admin?
You have like, I don't want to diss anyone or anything here, but I remember working in church where it was very unbalanced, that pressure in a specific context, having to do a lot of things. I think it was a combination of unreasonable expectation, but also I didn't have the capacity and the skill yet to manage it all and to communicate well. And so I think it was actually a lot on my side that needed to be improved in that context. But it also put me on a speedy learning curve. So on a practical level, always communicate, even if you feel like, man, I'm busy with this, filming this production, but this person wants to know this about a website or whatever. It's like, communicate. If you communicate and you get people up, like, find that you have to do your, like, I always feel like, no, they want to know I'm only working on their project. And it's like, most people know that's just not the way it works, because they know how much they're paying you, so they know that you can't survive on what they're paying you. You need to fill up the basket a little bit. So I think it can go too far, and I think you can get too busy. And I think once you start feeling it in your soul, and you it's grinding you, you need to really figure it out. But on a practical level, I use project management app software kind of thing, just so I can always visually see where things are and create little tasks. And even if I don't do that task for like the next 3 weeks, because maybe I feel I can push a little bit, back, but then communicate, but then have something. I'm a visual person. I need to kind of see all the stuff spread. When I do a documentary or something, I print out sheets of notes or whatever. It's just plucked all over my wall, So I need to kind of spread visually to so my mind doesn't go crazy. So I make a lot of lists and I make a lot of tasks and try at least, move on a practical level. But and I found like when you find that I can't manage all these things all together, it always works out in the sense that person, like you feel there's a deadline, there's another deadline the day after. It's like it always works out in the way where people move things around and you don't even have to worry about it. It just works out in the end, because when it feels like it's too tight, usually it's not too tight in my context, because of just the way people work. Their meeting gets moved or whatever. So and you kind of need to fill up the basket a little bit now in this context, being back in South Africa, needing to make a mark again, but I think when it gets to the point where if it gets to the point where you can't sleep, because I've had that before, where you struggle to switch off when it's time to switch off, then you need to reassess some things,
So that's super important, looking out for the signs.
Yeah.
But what I'm also hearing from you is finding your way. You're a visual person, finding your way of what helps you. And then the super important third thing was communication.
Yeah. I think that's what I learned in America. It's like over-communicate. And if you over-communicate, people are they're going to feel taken care of. That means it takes pressure off you to deliver like really right now. If they know where they're at with you, they have the choice to communicate back to you. Dude, listen, I have this important meeting now. I didn't know about it. It's coming up tomorrow. Can you help me out? And then you make it work, because the other person's not going to have that same urgency, So I think the communication thing is the most important, and probably the thing that I'm going to learn to do better till the day I die. So,
Don't die now, please. But last question from my side. So I think most people watching this, creatives, it's the business of music. Yeah. Any parting shot, any wisdom, any thing that you would like to leave with them before we end off this session today?
I said it a little bit earlier. Don't specialize too soon. Specialize, but stay curious. Stay curious to, I only wanted to be a singer-songwriter. And to be honest, if I found that momentum, I wouldn't mind it. But, life's life. Life doesn't give everyone what it's given, I don't know, Justin Bieber or, whatever. It just doesn't. But I knew one thing. I wanted to be creative. I wanted my everyday not to be the same as the day before. That's probably the one thing that even though I might not have found the momentum as a singer-songwriter, if I can walk into, even when I was overworked in America, because that's what I'll call it, I never looked up to, I never walked into the office feeling I don't want to walk into this. I was always like happy to create something new. So that's the one thing. Always, even if you need to do admin jobs, keep creating, keep writing your songs, keep drawing stuff, just keep going through those hard times, or not hard times, but just like where life takes you. Don't specialize too soon. Specialize, but don't hold on to it so tight that you're going to miss this other opportunity here where you can actually marry that talent and skill with this new direction, and then in the end also, in 10 years time, say you start down this road, in 10 years time, only a few guys are going to keep doing it. And if you're one of those guys, you're going to be on top. Wow. So, so don't give up in that sense, but not because never give up. Oh yeah, Churchill, let's win the war kind of thing. But it's like, if you just keep going at it, even if you now all of a sudden need to work here to make money, work and stuff, but keep doing this, keep gunning at it, even if now you can give 10% of it, but in 2 years time you can give 80% of it or 50%, but you keep going. And then when the dust settles, and there's two people standing and you're one of them, then you're the leader in that context. So
fantastic.
Charl, thank you so much from us here at the Bomb. If you like this, please press the button and subscribe to our channel. And we see you soon for the next episode of Business of Music Breakdown. Again, thank you very much for visiting us, Charl.
Thanks for having me.
And listeners, we check you soon.